A lot of answers that I found to life's questions came from books. So I'm going to show you how to go from not being able to read any books at all to being able to read as many books as you want. I'm 32, and up until 9 years ago, I wasn't able to read any books at all. I was literate. I had the ability to read, but every time I would sit down and try to read a book, I would get distracted or bored, or I would read 2 or 3 sentences and then completely forget what I just read and then give up. So I came up with my own techniques to finally be able to get through a book. Be sure to stay until the end because I actually included a bonus tip to be able to remember what you read. A lot of tips in this book actually apply to nonfiction books, but some apply to any book. Tip number 1 is to actually not read the entire book. If you're reading a nonfiction book where you're trying to get a specific answer to a specific question, then you actually don't need to read the entire book. In the case of this book, the author actually recommends that you don't read the entire book and that you only read what you need to get the results that you're looking for. Many books are either filled with fluff or extra information that you don't need or stories. If you're like me, you might begin to get distracted or bored, or that might make you feel like finishing the entire book is very tedious. So what I do first is I open the book and I look through the chapters and I see exactly where the information is that I'm looking for. Then once I find those chapters, I go to the subheadings in those chapters and see exactly where that information is and read it. And that's it. But that might bring the question of, what if that entire book applies to me and I want to read the entire thing? Well, that brings up the next tip, which is take your time. I've spent so much time trying to rush through a book as quickly as possible that I not only missed a lot of information, but I also pretty much forgot everything that I read. If you're reading through a book and you decide that you want to read through the entire thing, then this tip can be very helpful. Before I start reading a book, I just tell myself that it'll take as long as it needs to take for me to finish. When it comes to reading, my brain is not like everyone else, so why would I expect it to get things done like everyone else? I know you hear other people talking about how they finish a book in a few weeks or even a few days, but even if you finish a book in 1 or 2 months, that's still reading between 6 to 12 books per year if you plan on reading multiple books. If I go into a book expecting for it to take a while, then I don't feel as rushed and I don't feel like I need to finish as quickly as possible. Don't try to force it and give yourself as much time as you need. The next tip is to only read books that you're interested in. I don't know about you, but when I was going through school, I would dread reading books in English class or any class for that matter. I would either fall asleep or become extremely distracted, and I absolutely hated it. As an adult, I realized that this was because I was being forced to read books that I wasn't interested in at all. Once I realized this, I started by trying to read multiple genres and see which ones I was interested in. I eventually found that I loved to read books about personal finance, business, and fitness. These books answered specific questions about topics that I was interested in. Since then, for the most part, I only read books that fit into these categories. The next tip that I have is to eliminate distractions. I don't care what I'm reading. If there's a bunch of distractions going on around me, then I won't be able to focus on anything. Distractions can be in the form of people, noises, things that you can see, or anything else around you that grabs your attention. When reading a book, I'll either sit on the couch, in the living room, or read in my car. Both of these for me are pretty dull or non-exciting areas with not a lot of distractions. I also put my phone on vibrate or silent and make sure that it's not within arm's reach. Usually if I can see something that I know will distract me, I'm way more likely to get distracted by it. My next tip is to make sure that the area that I'm reading in is very well lit. Now this one might not apply to everyone, but it certainly does work for me. I know that if I'm not in a well-lit room or area, then I'm way more likely to get sleepy or lose focus. My brain has a way of making me feel really sleepy or tired when I have to do productive things, and this is especially true when it's dark. I try to use as much light as possible. This also helps me see the words on the page a lot clearer and creates a lot less distraction, so more of my energy can go towards reading than actually trying to see the words on the page. The next tip is don't force it. Usually when I made up my mind that I was going to sit and read for a specific period of time, I would not stop and I would try to sit there as long as possible until that time limit was reached. This led to me not only being very disappointed and frustrated with myself, but also led to me wasting that time because I would just wind up not reading anything at all. So I decided that I would just tell myself I would start reading at a certain time and I would read for as long as my brain would allow me to read. If that meant only 3 minutes, then so be it. Sometimes I would be able to read only for that long. Another time I would be able to read for an hour or more. The point here is to not force it. I would just stop and do something else. Now, in the beginning of this video, I mentioned that I would have a bonus tip for remembering what you read, and that tip is to simply just write notes. However, However, I have a specific way that I write notes. I don't actually recommend highlighting, because what I would do is I would start highlighting in the books, expecting that my later self would go back, reread over the portion of the book that I highlighted, but I would never actually do that. Now what I would do is when I was reading a book, I would keep a notebook next to me. And when I found a portion of the book that I found specifically value to me or important, I would write down that line and page number so that I would have the information that I wanted to remember. And I would be able to go back to that page and read the entire page if I decided that's what I wanted to do. Now, this doesn't really work if you write down the entire book, but remember that a lot of books are filled with fluff or extra information that might not be necessary. So only take the bits that are important to you, and that's really it. If you want to see more videos like this, then go ahead and subscribe.